Hi, everyone. All right, we are going to start lesson 15 in Ready Reading. What are poems made of? Today, we are going to be taking a closer look at pages 242, 243, 244, 245, and 247. So this week we are going to be reading and discussing poems and learning about their structures. And as we go through this lesson this week, I would like you to think about poems that were read to you or poems that perhaps you have read when you were younger. Things like Humpty Dumpty or Itsy Bitsy Spider or Wheels on the Bus or Jack and Jill, for example. These are all poems that I would like you to think about as we proceed through this lesson. So I'd like you to take a look at the learning target. It says when you understand the parts of a poem, you can see how each line and stanza builds on what came before it. We are going to be talking about lines or verses and stanzas more in just a moment. This green read here says many poems tell stories. Like stories, they have a speaker who talks to the reader. They also have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Poems are made up of lines that are called verses. A group of verses is called a stanza. So I'm going to stop there for just a moment and direct your attention down to this poem that we will be reading in just a moment entitled A Penguin's Life. So please take a look where it says number 1. You're going to see 4 lines here. These lines are called verses, and these 4 lines or verses create a stanza. So I'd like you to think of a stanza as like a poem paragraph. Okay? The stanzas in a poem work together to tell a story. Each stanza tells an important part of the poem story, and the stanzas build on each other to present ideas and tell a story. So we're going to now read this poem entitled A Penguin's Life, and I would like you to think about how the second stanza builds on the first one. All right, so here we go. A Penguin's Life. I'm a bird with little wings, but they don't make me fly. The air above is not for me, the ocean is my sky. In icy seas, I swoop and soar, a swimmer fast and bold. You'd swim fast if you were me. The water sure is cold. All right, on page 243, where it says think in green, you've learned what verses and stanzas are and how stanzas make meaning in a poem. How do the stanzas in A Penguin's Life work together to present an idea about penguins? So you do have this organizer below, and it's going to be asking you for the idea of each stanza. And of course, number 1 is already completed for you. So the idea of stanza 1 is that penguins cannot fly. So you are going to be filling out the idea of stanza 2 and the idea of the whole poem. All right? And again, these words, stanza, verses, and speaker, what we've talked about are again explained on page 241 here. And I'm going to pause the video so that we can complete this part of the organizer before we proceed. All right, we are going to continue on on page 244. We are now going to be reading a Navajo poem. It is entitled Little Puppy. Now, I would like to draw your attention here to what we call the byline of the poem. That is explaining to you that this poem is from the Navajo people, and they live in the southwestern part of the United States. So I'm going to be reading this poem to you as you follow along. Please notice that this poem has two stanzas or two poem paragraphs. Stanza 1 has 6 verses or lines, and stanza 2 has 5 verses or lines. As I am reading this poem to you, I would like you to keep several questions in mind. First of all, I'd like you to think about who the speaker is in this poem. And I'd like you to think about who the speaker is describing or what the speaker is describing in stanza 1. And then who or what is the speaker describing in stanza 2. And I would also like you to look at the close reader habit box down below where it says circle things in each stanza the speaker in the poem tells about and sees. All right, so again, the little puppy from the Navajo. Little puppy with the black spots, come and herd the flock with me. We will climb the red rocks, and from the top we'll see the tall cliffs, the straight cliffs where the eagles live. We'll see the dark rocks, the smooth rocks that hold the rain to give us water when we eat our bread and meat when the sun is high. All right, so proceeding to page 245, it is asking, how do the two stanzas of Little Puppy work together to build meaning? So we'll have another organizer to finish. The idea of stanza 1 has already been completed for you. You will need to complete idea of stanza 2, and then of course the idea of the whole poem. Going back to the idea of stanza 1, it says, the speaker and dog will climb the red rocks. They will see tall, straight cliffs where eagles live. In your breakout groups, you will be completing the idea of stanza 2 and the idea of the whole poem. And so something to think about. As you read, summarize each stanza to help you understand the poem. You are also going to have an opportunity to offer a short response. And it goes on to say, how are the ideas in the first stanza and the second stanza connected? How does that help you understand what the poem is about? And it is going to give you that opportunity here. I'm going to scroll forward so that you can see it on page 248. Please put your response here, and please be prepared to share out.